Smoke still rose from the settlement when Gorath arrived. His boots crushed debris with each step, the sound echoing through empty streets where families had lived just days before. The swarm had come through like a wave of destruction, leaving nothing but silence and ash. Gorath stood 12 feet tall, his armored body casting long shadows across the ruins. He was a crone, a DreadWalker built for war and nothing else. His scanner swept across collapsed buildings, searching for any trace of the enemy. The swarm rarely left survivors, but protocol demanded a full survey. Every structure needed inspection. Every corner checked. Gorath had done this 100 times before on 100 different worlds. He felt nothing as he walked through what used to be homes. Feeling was a weakness his people had bred out of themselves centuries ago. The settlement had been called New Haven. Humans had built it on this frontier world, trying to carve out a life far from the crowded core systems. They had farms here, schools, small businesses. All of it was gone now. Gorath's tactical computer cataloged the damage with cold efficiency. Estimated casualties, 4,200. Structural integrity, 0%. Strategic value, none. He moved through the residential sector, his scanner picking up the faint readings of failing power cells and dying electronics. Nothing lived here anymore. The swarm made sure of that. They consumed everything organic, leaving only metal and stone behind. Gorath had fought them for decades. He knew their patterns, their tactics, their ruthlessness. They were like him in some ways. Pure purpose without hesitation. Then his scanner caught something different. A life sign. Faint but steady. Coming from beneath a collapsed 2-story dwelling. Gorath stopped and rechecked his readings. Definitely organic. Definitely alive. He moved toward the rubble, his massive hands beginning to clear away broken beams and shattered walls. The life sign grew stronger as he dug deeper. The shelter revealed itself piece by piece. Someone had built it well, reinforced and sealed against the elements, against the swarm. Gorath pulled away the last section of debris and found the hatch. It was still locked from the inside, still powered by emergency cells. He overrode the mechanism and opened it. Heat and light spilled out from below. The shelter had maintained its environment perfectly. Gorath climbed down the ladder, his bulk barely fitting through the narrow passage. At the bottom, he found a small room lined with supplies, water, food, medical equipment, and in the center, wrapped in a thermal blanket inside a reinforced cradle, a human infant. The child was awake, staring up at him with wide eyes. She could not have been more than 6 months old. Her tiny face was round and soft, completely unlike the sharp angles of his own species. She should have been afraid. Any rational being would fear a Kron DreadWalker, but instead she smiled. Her small hands reached up toward him, fingers opening and closing. Gorath accessed his tactical database for information on human infants. The data was limited. His people rarely interacted with human children. The computer provided basic biological facts. Average weight, developmental stages, nutritional requirements. Nothing about what to do when one smiled at you. He looked around the shelter and found the answer to questions he had not yet asked. 2 bodies lay in the corner, carefully arranged. The infant's parents. They had sealed themselves in here with their child, using the last of their strength to keep the shelter powered. They had died so she could live. Gorath found a data chip attached to the cradle. He plugged it into his system and watched a brief recording. A woman appeared on his visual display, her face tired but determined. She spoke directly to whoever might find the shelter. Her name was Rebecca. The man beside her was David. They explained what had happened, how the swarm had come too fast for evacuation. They had built this shelter in secret, knowing they might need it someday. They asked whoever found their daughter to take care of her, to give her a chance at life. Her name was Lucy. The recording ended. Gorath stood in the shelter looking down at Lucy. She was still smiling at him, making soft sounds that his database identified as contented babbling. His tactical computer immediately provided options. He could leave her here and call for a retrieval team. He could terminate her as a liability. He could simply walk away and let nature take its course. All 3 options followed protocol. All 3 options made logical sense. Gorath reached down with hands designed to crush battle armor. His fingers, each as thick as the child's arms, carefully slid beneath her small body. He lifted Lucy from the cradle with the precision he usually reserved for handling explosives. She weighed almost nothing. He could barely feel her against his armored chest. She grabbed onto his plating with tiny fists, gurgling happily. Something shifted inside Gorath's mind. Not his tactical computer, not his combat protocols. Something deeper that his training had tried to eliminate. He looked at Lucy's trusting face and made a decision that defied every bit of logic his species valued. He would not leave her. He would not terminate her. He would not walk away. He gathered the supplies from the shelter, fashioning a carrier from the thermal blanket. Lucy fit inside perfectly, secure against his chest. He climbed back up the ladder and emerged into the ruined settlement. The smoke still drifted through empty streets. The silence still pressed down like a weight. But now Gorath carried something those who built this place had fought to protect. Hope wrapped in a blanket, small and fragile and alive. His ship waited at the edge of the settlement. Gorath walked toward it, adjusting his stride to avoid jostling the infant against his chest. Lucy made happy sounds, unaware that her entire world had changed. Unaware that she had just changed the world of the galaxy's most feared warrior. The DreadWalker and the human child disappeared into the ship together, leaving the ruins of New Haven behind. The ship's interior lights flickered to full brightness as Gorath carried Lucy through the airlock. His vessel, the Hammerfist, had been his home for 50 years of military service. Every surface was metal and efficiency. No decoration, no comfort, nothing soft. It was a tool just like he was. Now he stood in the cargo bay holding a human infant, and the ship suddenly felt wrong for the first time in his life. Axis activated immediately, the ship's artificial intelligence responding to his return. The voice was neutral and mechanical. Gorath had never noticed before, but it sounded cold. Axis began listing mission statistics and system reports. Then the AI stopped mid-sentence. Sensors had detected the infant. Unauthorized organic detected. Quarantine protocols initiated. Please confirm identity and authorization codes. Gorath ignored the request and carried Lucy toward the crew quarters. The baby was looking around at the harsh lighting and bare walls, her expression curious rather than afraid. She reached out to touch a wall panel as they passed, her small hand leaving tiny fingerprints on the polished surface. Gorath realized she would need somewhere safe to sleep. Somewhere warm. The standard crew berth would not work. Warning. Unauthorized organic is a human juvenile. This violates Section 12 of Military Transport Regulations. Medical bay quarantine is required. Please comply immediately. Gorath set Lucy down on his sleeping platform, using supply crates to build barriers so she could not roll off. She lay on her back, kicking her legs and making sounds. He noticed she was starting to fuss, her face scrunching up in a way that his database indicated meant discomfort or need. He checked the time. 4 hours had passed since he found her. The data chip from her parents had mentioned feeding schedules. He went to the supply locker and pulled out his standard ration pack. Dense nutrition in a gray block, designed to keep Kron soldiers functioning in the field. He looked at it, then looked at Lucy, then checked his database again. Human infants could not eat solid food. They required liquid nutrition, specifically formulated for their developing systems. His ration packs would kill her. Axis continued protesting as Gorath made his way to the medical bay. The AI was designed to follow regulations, and every moment Lucy remained on board created more violations. Gorath accessed the medical synthesizer, the machine his people used to create emergency medications and nutrients. He input the chemical formula for human infant nutrition, pulling the information from his database. The machine hummed and produced a bottle of pale liquid. He returned to find Lucy crying, her small face red and her body squirming. The sound cut through the ship's quiet like nothing he had ever heard. It was not a tactical alarm or a weapons warning. It was pure need demanding response. Gorath picked her up awkwardly, remembering the recording of her mother. She had held Lucy in a specific position while feeding. He tried to copy it. Lucy grabbed the bottle with both hands and drank desperately. The crying stopped immediately, replaced by quiet sucking sounds. Gorath stood perfectly still, afraid to move and disturb her. She was so small against his armored chest, so fragile. One wrong move and he could hurt her without meaning to. But she seemed content, her eyes drifting closed as she drank. This is highly irregular. The organic appears to be bonding with you. This will complicate proper placement with civilian authorities. I must recommend immediate transfer upon arrival at the station. Gorath finally spoke. No transfer. She stays with me. The AI went silent for a moment, processing this statement. That is not possible. You are a military asset. Military assets do not maintain dependents. Protocol requires civilian placement for rescued juveniles. Protocol is noted. My decision stands. Lucy finished the bottle and made a small sound. Gorth had no idea what it meant. His database provided dozens of possibilities. Discomfort, gas, contentment, fatigue. He tried holding her against his shoulder as he had seen in the data files. She made the sound again, louder this time, and then produced a small amount of liquid that ran down his armor. The database identified it as normal digestive response. She had burped. The next several days fell into a pattern that Gorth had never experienced. Lucy needed food every few hours. She needed her wrappings changed when they became soiled. She needed to be held and comforted when she cried. She needed temperature regulation and environmental monitoring. Gorth, who could go days without rest during combat operations, found himself exhausted by the constant demands of one small human. But something else happened during those days. Lucy began responding to him. She would stop crying when he picked her up. She would watch him move around the ship, her eyes tracking his every movement. When he held her, she would grab onto his armor and make contented sounds. She was learning that he meant safety. Gorth found himself talking to her even though she could not understand. He would explain what he was doing as he prepared her bottles or checked the environmental controls. His voice seemed to calm her. Sometimes she would babble back at him, as if they were having a conversation. Axis recorded these interactions with clinical notes about psychological attachment patterns. The ship approached Kron space after 6 days of travel. Gorth had not slept more than a few hours total, catching rest in short intervals when Lucy slept. He had learned her patterns now, knew when she would be hungry, when she needed to sleep, when she wanted to be held. His tactical mind had absorbed this information the same way it absorbed weapon specifications and enemy movement patterns. He stood at the viewport with Lucy in his arms, looking out at the massive military station ahead. It hung against the stars like a weapon waiting to be fired, all sharp angles and armored surfaces. His entire life had been spent in places like that. Now he was bringing Lucy into that world, and he realized it might break her. Axis spoke again. Arrival in 30 minutes. Please prepare the organic for transfer to appropriate civilian authorities. Commander Brell has been notified of the situation. Gorth looked down at Lucy. She was sleeping against his chest, tiny fingers curled around a piece of his armor. He thought about her parents dying in that shelter while making sure she lived. He thought about the smile she had given him when he found her. He thought about the past 6 days learning how to care for something instead of destroy it. No transfer. She is mine now. Under ancient Kron law, I claim guardianship rights. Lucy is my clan. The statement hung in the air. Axis processed it silently. Somewhere on the station ahead, alarms were probably going off. A DreadWalker claiming a human infant as clan was unprecedented. It was illogical. It would cause problems. Gorth did not care. He held Lucy close as the ship docked, ready to face whatever came next. Commander Brell's office had never felt so crowded. Gorth stood at attention, Lucy secured in a carrier against his chest. The tiny human was awake and looking around at all the new faces. Around them, 5 senior officers sat in judgment, their expressions ranging from confusion to outright hostility. This was not a normal debriefing. This was a trial without being called one. Brell spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of 400 years of command experience. You found a human infant in the ruins. Standard protocol is civilian transfer. Why did you deviate? Gorth met his commander's eyes. She had no one else. Her parents died protecting her. I invoked guardianship rights under clan law. The room erupted. 2 officers started talking at once. Another slammed his hand on the table. Clan law had not been used in over 3 centuries. It was ancient tradition from before the Kron became a military species. Warriors used to adopt war orphans, bringing them into their clans to be raised as their own. But that was before genetic engineering, before the DreadWalker program, before the Kron transformed themselves into living weapons. Officer Dren stood up, his armor scraping against his chair. This is a malfunction. DreadWalkers do not raise children. We are designed for combat, not childcare. This warrior needs reconditioning. The human should be removed immediately for its own safety. Lucy chose that moment to make a sound, a happy gurgle that cut through the tension. She reached up and grabbed Gorth's chin with one small hand, babbling at him. Every officer in the room watched as the massive warrior gently moved his head closer, so she could reach better, his expression softening in a way none of them had ever seen. Brel raised his hand for silence. Before we make any decisions, I have asked Dr. Nara Wynn to provide expert testimony. She is a human xenobiologist who has studied cross-species child development. Doctor, please proceed. A human woman entered the room, small compared to the Kron officers but carrying herself with confidence. She looked at Gorath and Lucy, then turned to address the assembled command. I have reviewed the recordings from Gorath's ship over the past 6 days. I have also examined Lucy and run standard developmental assessments. What I found surprised me. She activated a display showing footage from the hammer fist. The officers watched Gorath learning to feed Lucy, to comfort her, to respond to her needs. They saw his careful attention to every detail, his endless patience with her crying, his gentle handling of her tiny body. They saw Lucy begin to recognize him, to calm at his voice, to reach for him when distressed. Human infants survive through bonding. They form attachments to their primary caregivers within the first few months of life. These bonds are crucial for healthy development. Lucy has formed a secure attachment to Gorath. He has become her parent figure in every way that matters. Removing her now would cause genuine psychological trauma, Dren interrupted. With respect, Doctor, this is a military matter. The warrior is designed for combat. His conditioning could fail at any moment. The human child is in danger. Dr. Wynn smiled slightly. Actually, my assessment shows the opposite. Gorath's combat effectiveness scores from his last simulation run were the highest of his career. His tactical decision-making has improved. His stress markers are lower than they have been in decades. Caring for Lucy has not made him weaker. It has made him more focused, more purposeful, more effective. She pulled up more data, charts, and graphs that meant nothing to Gorath but seemed to impress the officers. Lucy is thriving under his care. All developmental benchmarks are normal or above average. She shows no signs of stress or fear. She is, by every measure, a healthy and happy infant. That does not happen by accident. That happens because someone is doing an excellent job caring for her. Brel studied the data in silence. Finally, he looked at Gorath. Why take this on? You could have walked away. You could have followed protocol. Why does this one human child matter? Gorath had been asked many questions in his 70 years. Battle plans, target priorities, threat assessments. Never this. He looked down at Lucy, who was chewing on her own hand and watching him with complete trust. The words came slowly. Her parents died so she could live. They used their last moments to protect her. When I found her, she smiled at me. She did not see a weapon or a monster. She saw someone who might help. I have taken thousands of lives in service to the Kron. I have destroyed cities and defeated armies, but I had never saved anyone. Not really. She gave me a chance to do that. The room was quiet. Even Dren seemed uncertain now. Brel looked at his officers, reading their faces. Then he made his decision. The High Council will need to review this. It is too unprecedented for my authority alone. However, I am not inclined to separate a child from someone who has shown such dedication to her welfare. Gorath, you will be granted a probationary period of 6 months. You will continue your regular duties while maintaining care for Lucy. Dr. Wynn will conduct monthly evaluations. If at any point Lucy shows signs of distress or your combat effectiveness declines, this arrangement ends. Understood? Understood, Commander. Brel's expression softened slightly, something that rarely happened. For what it is worth, Gorath, what you have done is either the biggest mistake of your career or the most important thing any of us will witness. Time will tell which. The meeting ended. Officers filed out, some still shaking their heads in disbelief. Dr. Wynn approached Gorath as the room emptied. She looked at Lucy, who reached for her with curious hands. You are going to face a lot of challenges. The station is not designed for infants. Your schedule is not designed for childcare. Other soldiers will not understand. But if you need help, ask for it. Lucy needs you, but you cannot do this alone. Gorath nodded. Thank you, Doctor. I will not fail her. Dr. Wynn smiled. I do not think you could if you tried. She has already changed you more than you realize. Gorath left the command center and headed toward his assigned quarters. They would need significant modification. Lucy would need proper sleeping arrangements, play space, safety measures. His entire life would need restructuring around her needs. Other DreadWalkers watched as he passed through the corridors. This legendary warrior carrying a human infant like she was the most valuable cargo in the galaxy. Word was already spreading through the station. The Titan DreadWalker had found a human child and claimed her as his own. Opinions ranged from admiration to disgust to pure confusion, but no one could deny what they saw. Lucy was content in his arms, babbling happily while grabbing at his armor. And Gareth, the warrior who had never shown emotion in half a century of service, looked down at her with something that could only be called love. His probation had begun. 6 months to prove that a weapon could be a father. 6 months to show that the fiercest warrior in the galaxy could protect one small life. 6 months to change everything anyone thought they knew about what was possible. 3 months into fatherhood, Gareth maintained detailed logs that would have impressed any military quartermaster. Lucy's feeding schedule was precise to the minute. Her sleep patterns were charted with the same care he once used for ammunition inventories. Her developmental milestones were documented with clinical accuracy. She had grown 2 inches, gained 3 pounds, started grabbing objects with purpose, responded to her name with consistent recognition. But the real changes were harder to measure. Gareth found himself thinking differently about everything. During tactical simulations, he noticed evacuation routes he would have ignored before. When reviewing defensive positions, he considered where civilians might shelter. In strategy meetings, he asked questions about humanitarian concerns that made other officers stare. His perspective had shifted in ways that had nothing to do with Lucy's feeding schedule. The other DreadWalkers noticed. Some kept their distance, treating him like he had contracted something contagious. Others watched with barely hidden curiosity. A few approached him privately, asking questions they would never voice in public. What is it like? Does she really recognize you? Are you not afraid of hurting her? Gareth answered honestly. It is difficult. She requires constant attention. I am always aware that one mistake could harm her. But when she looks at me and smiles, when she reaches for me because I make her feel safe, nothing else matters. She is my purpose now. His combat scores supported Dr. Wynn's early assessment. During his monthly qualification runs, Gareth performed better than ever. His reaction times were sharper. His tactical decisions more creative. His endurance improved. The instructors could not explain it. They had expected deterioration. Instead, they witnessed enhancement. One instructor commented that Gareth fought like someone who had something to protect, not just something to destroy. Lucy's presence on the station created unexpected moments. She would babble at passing soldiers from her carrier on Gareth's chest. Some ignored her. Others could not help but respond, their fierce expressions softening for just a moment as they acknowledged the tiny human. She treated the military station like her personal playground, completely unaware that she was surrounded by the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. The crisis came during a routine patrol. Gareth was off duty, in his quarters with Lucy. She had just learned to sit up on her own and was practicing this new skill with intense concentration. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. A swarm scout force had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. They were approaching the outer defensive perimeter, all combat personnel to stations. This is not a drill. Swarm contact confirmed. All combat personnel to stations immediately. Gareth looked at Lucy. She was startled by the alarms, her face scrunching up as she prepared to cry. He picked her up and tried to think. His duty was clear. DreadWalkers did not ignore combat alerts, but he could not take Lucy into a battle situation. He could not leave her alone in his quarters during an attack. His communicator activated. Dr. Wynn's voice came through. Gareth, bring Lucy to the civilian shelter on Deck 7. I will watch her while you fight. Go protect your home. He moved fast, carrying Lucy through corridors filling with soldiers rushing to their positions. She clung to him, sensing his urgency even if she could not understand it. He reached the shelter where Dr. Wynn waited with other civilian personnel. The doctor took Lucy gently. I have her. She will be safe. Now go do what you do best. Gareth looked at Lucy one more time. She was reaching back for him, confused about why he was leaving. He touched her small hand with one massive finger. I will return. I promise. Then he ran for the armory, his mind already shifting into combat mode. But it was different now. He was not just defending a military installation. He was protecting the place where his daughter lived. Every swarm creature that got through their defenses was a threat to her. That changed everything. The battle was brutal. Swarm scouts were smaller than their main forces, but no less vicious. They hit the outer defensive platforms hard, overwhelming automated systems with sheer numbers. Gorath and 5 other DreadWalkers deployed in heavy assault armor, meeting the swarm in the debris field around the station. Gorath fought like nothing his fellow warriors had ever witnessed. He was always skilled, always effective. Now he was unstoppable. He moved through the swarm with focused fury, every action calculated to protect the station behind him. When a group of scouts tried to flank around toward the civilian sections, Gorath broke formation to intercept them alone, destroying all 15 before they could threaten the inner hull. Commander Brell watched from tactical command. What is he doing? He is fighting out of position. That should get him killed, but Gorath did not die. He fought with a precision born from new understanding. Every swarm he killed was one that could never reach Lucy. Every defensive line he held was another barrier between his daughter and harm. His fellow DreadWalkers adjusted their positions to support him, and together they pushed the swarm back until the scout force retreated. The all-clear sounded 2 hours after the initial alert. Gorath limped back to the station, his armor scorched and dented but intact. Other warriors clapped him on the back, congratulating him on confirmed kills and tactical decisions. He barely heard them. He went straight to the civilian shelter. Dr. Wynne was walking Lucy around the shelter space, bouncing her gently and humming. Lucy had cried for a while but eventually settled. When she saw Gorath enter, her face lit up with recognition. She reached for him with both arms, making urgent sounds. Dr. Wynne handed her over. The moment Lucy was in his arms, she grabbed his armor and pressed her face against his chest. She made soft whimpering sounds, not quite crying but clearly relieved. Gorath held her close, his entire body relaxing for the first time since the alarm sounded. She was asking for you the whole time. She knew you were gone and she did not like it. Dr. Wynne smiled. But she trusted you would come back. That is what attachment looks like, Gorath. She knows you are her father. Commander Brell found them there an hour later. He stood in the doorway watching the massive warrior sit on the floor with his infant daughter. Lucy was calm now, playing with a small toy Dr. Wynne had provided. Gorath watched her with complete attention, his battle-damaged armor forgotten. You fought well today, better than I have ever seen you fight. Thank you, Commander. Brell stepped inside, his expression thoughtful. I understand now. What Dr. Wynne told us, you are not weaker because of Lucy. You are stronger. You know what you are protecting. That makes all the difference. Gorath looked up at his commander. She is my daughter. I will always protect her. Brell nodded slowly. I am recommending that the High Council approve your guardianship permanently. You have proven yourself over these past months. Lucy is clearly your child and you are clearly her father. No one can question that now. After Brell left, Gorath sat with Lucy until she fell asleep against his chest. Other DreadWalkers came by the shelter, ostensibly checking on civilian welfare. But they were really looking at Gorath and Lucy. Word of his performance in battle had spread quickly. He had fought for something more than duty. He had fought for family. One younger warrior named Grant lingered in the doorway. He watched Lucy sleep for a long moment before speaking quietly. I found an injured creature once, on a mission 3 years ago. It was small and hurt and looking at me like it wanted help. I almost stayed with it, but I left it there because that is what we do. We do not care. We do not attach. We are weapons. Gorath met his eyes. We can be more than weapons. Lucy taught me that. Grant nodded and left without another word. But Gorath saw something in the younger warrior's expression. Recognition, maybe, or hope. The knowledge that perhaps they did not have to be what they were designed to be. Perhaps they could choose something different. Lucy stirred in her sleep, making a small sound. Gorath adjusted his position so she could rest more comfortably. His armor was damaged and needed repair. His body ached from battle. Reports would need filing. But none of that mattered right now. His daughter was safe. She was here with him. That was enough. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within weeks, every major civilization had heard about the Kron DreadWalker raising a human infant. Media outlets requested interviews. Scholars wrote papers analyzing the implications. Politicians debated what it meant for interspecies relations. Some praised it as a breakthrough in cross-cultural understanding. Others condemned it as dangerous and inappropriate. Everyone had an opinion about Gorath and Lucy. The younger DreadWalkers talked about it in training halls when their commanders were not listening. Grant started the conversations, asking questions that others had been thinking but not voicing. If Gorath can choose something beyond combat, can we? Are we really just weapons, or did we make ourselves that way? What else might be possible? 5 warriors began meeting privately to discuss these ideas. They watched how Gorath had changed, how his life had gained new meaning. They saw that he had not become weak. He had become focused on something worth protecting. That resonated with feelings they had spent their whole lives suppressing. Grant approached Gorath directly one evening. Lucy was 9 months old now, crawling everywhere and getting into everything. Gorath was modifying his quarters again, adding new safety barriers as she discovered new ways to endanger herself. Grant stood in the doorway, watching the massive warrior child-proof his living space. I want to request a transfer to search and rescue operations. They need DreadWalkers who can reach people in collapsed structures, dangerous environments. I think I could do that. I think I want to do that. Gorath looked up from his work. Lucy had crawled over to Grant and was trying to climb his boot. The warrior reached down automatically to steady her, his expression uncertain. She babbled at him cheerfully. Why search and rescue? Because I want to save things instead of destroy them. Like you did. Grant picked up Lucy carefully, holding her with surprising gentleness for someone who claimed no experience with children. You showed us we have a choice. I want to make a different choice. Commander Brell approved the transfer. Then 2 more warriors requested similar reassignments. The Crone High Command began noticing a pattern. Gorath's example was creating ripples through their military structure. Young DreadWalkers were questioning their predetermined roles. Some senior officers viewed this as concerning. Others saw it as evolution. But the most significant attention came from outside the Kron military. Representative Dren, who had opposed Gorath's guardianship from the beginning, brought the matter before the full Galactic Council. He argued that allowing a military asset to raise a civilian child set a dangerous precedent. He presented a formal motion to remove Lucy from Gorath's custody and place her with human civilian authorities. The hearing was broadcast across multiple systems. Billions watched as Gorath stood before the council, Lucy strapped to his chest in her carrier. She was awake and curious, looking around at all the different alien species in the chamber. She grabbed at Gorath's armor and babbled while the council debated her fate. Dren spoke with rehearsed passion. This child deserves a normal life. She should be raised by humans who understand human needs. This warrior, however well-intentioned, cannot provide proper socialization, education, or cultural connection. He is a military asset designed for combat. She is a vulnerable infant. This arrangement may seem touching, but it is fundamentally inappropriate. The council members listened, some nodding in agreement. Then Dr. Wynne took the floor. She had prepared extensively for this moment, bringing data from 6 months of observations. I have monitored Lucy's development since Gorath claimed guardianship. She exceeds every developmental benchmark. Her physical health is excellent. Her emotional development is strong. She shows secure attachment behaviors, appropriate social responses, and healthy curiosity about her environment. These outcomes do not happen by accident. They happen because someone is providing exceptional care. Dr. Wynne displayed footage from the past months. Lucy laughing as Gorath played simple games with her. Lucy learning to crawl while he watched carefully. Lucy falling asleep in his arms after he sang to her in his deep, rumbling voice. The council watched a massive warrior being gentle, patient, and devoted. More importantly, separating them now would cause genuine harm to both. Lucy knows Gorath as her father. He is her primary attachment figure, her source of safety and comfort. Removing her would be traumatic. And Gorath has found purpose and meaning that has made him more effective, more focused, more complete. They need each other. Ambassador Carla Hughes, representing humanity in the council, spoke next. She looked directly at Dren. My species survived Earth, one of the harshest death worlds in known space, not because we were individually strong. We survived because we formed bonds across every barrier. Family is not defined by biology or species. It is defined by love, commitment, and care. Gorath has demonstrated all three. She gestured toward Lucy, who was chewing on her own hand and watching everything with wide eyes. That child is happy, healthy, and thriving. She has a father who would die to protect her. Many human children are not so fortunate. Who are we to tear apart a family that works simply because it does not look like what we expect? The council debated for hours. Representatives from dozens of species weighed in with opinions ranging from supportive to hostile. Lucy eventually fell asleep against Gorath's chest. undisturbed by the noise around her. Gorath stood at attention throughout, his expression neutral but his hands unconsciously protective around his daughter. Finally, the council called for a vote on Dren's motion to separate Gorath and Lucy. The chamber fell silent as votes were cast electronically. Results appeared on the central display. The motion failed by a margin of 3-1. The council ruled that Gorath would retain permanent guardianship of Lucy. Furthermore, they established new protocols recognizing cross-species family bonds throughout galactic civilization. Ambassador Hughes smiled at Gorath as the chamber emptied. "You just changed legal precedent for billions of beings. Families do not have to look traditional anymore. You proved that. I just wanted to keep my daughter. I know. That is why it matters." News of the council's decision spread even faster than the original story. Suddenly, Gorath and Lucy were not just a curiosity. They were a symbol. Within months, other cross-species guardianships began forming. A Vorlan engineer adopted human twin boys who survived a station disaster. A human teacher took in an orphaned Thessian child whose planet had been attacked. The barriers that once seemed permanent started cracking. Back on the Kron military station, Gorath's life continued with new confidence. Lucy was 10 months old now, pulling herself up on furniture and babbling in sounds that were starting to resemble words. She had no idea she was famous. She only knew that the massive armored warrior was her father, and he would always keep her safe. Grant completed his transfer to search and rescue. He visited Gorath's quarters to say goodbye before his first deployment. Lucy crawled over to him immediately, demanding to be picked up. Grant lifted her and she patted his face with both hands. "She likes you," Gorath observed from where he was preparing her evening meal. "I hope I can be half as brave as you have been. Choosing this was easy compared to what you did. You had no template, no guidance. You just decided to be a father and figured out how." Gorath looked at Lucy, who was now trying to grab Grant's ear. "I did not have a choice. The moment I saw her, everything changed. She needed someone. I needed her more than I knew." After Grant left, Gorath sat with Lucy on the floor of his quarters. She was playing with building blocks he had made for her, stacking them carefully, then knocking them down with gleeful destruction. He watched her, marveling at how much she had grown, how much personality she showed, how much joy she brought to his life. The Galactic Council had ruled in their favor. Other families were forming across species lines. The galaxy was changing because one warrior chose to save one child. But Gorath did not think about the big picture. He thought about Lucy's next feeding time, her upcoming medical check, and whether her new tooth was causing her discomfort. She looked up at him and smiled, that same trusting expression she had given him in the ruins of New Haven. Then she raised her arms, the universal gesture for pick-me-up. Gorath gathered her carefully and she settled against his chest with a contented sigh. The DreadWalker and his daughter. The weapon and the child, the warrior and the family he chose. Together they had changed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. But to Gorath that did not matter as much as Lucy's happiness. She was his entire world now. Everything else was just details. Lucy took her first steps on a regular afternoon in the station's common area. Gorath had been helping her practice, holding her hands while she wobbled on unsteady legs. She was determined, making frustrated sounds when she fell, but immediately trying again. Then, without warning, she let go of his fingers and took 3 steps on her own, before sitting down hard on her bottom. Gorath froze, his entire attention focused on what just happened. Lucy looked up at him with surprise and delight, as if she could not quite believe it either. She babbled excitedly and pulled herself up again, ready to try more. Other warriors had gathered to watch without Gorath noticing. These towering soldiers, bred for combat and trained to show no weakness, were standing around watching a human toddler learn to walk. When Lucy took 5 steps before falling this time, several of them made sounds of approval. One actually cheered, then looked embarrassed when others turned to stare. The moment was captured on security footage. By evening, it had become the most watched video in galactic history. Not because it showed anything remarkable from a biological standpoint. Human children learn to walk every day, but the sight of Lucy taking steps while surrounded by DreadWalkers, all of them watching with what could only be called pride, represented something the galaxy had never seen before. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council made Gorath an unexpected offer. They wanted to create a new position, Cultural Bridge Officer. The role would involve facilitating understanding between warrior species and civilian populations. Gorath would help others see beyond the barriers of biology and culture, using his unique perspective to build connections that seemed impossible. Commander Brell supported the assignment. You have done more for interspecies relations in 1 year than most diplomats accomplish in their entire careers. This is where you belong now. Fighting when necessary but building bridges the rest of the time. Gorath accepted with one condition. Lucy comes with me. Wherever this work takes me, she goes too. The council agreed. Lucy became the youngest official member of a galactic diplomatic mission. She was 1 year old and completely unaware that she was helping reshape civilization. She only knew that her father took her to interesting new places where she met different kinds of people. The work proved challenging, but rewarding. Gorath and Lucy visited worlds where warrior species struggled to integrate with civilian populations. His presence alone made a statement. Here was the ultimate warrior, gentle with his human daughter, showing that strength and compassion were not opposites. Many found it easier to reconsider their assumptions after seeing Lucy grab Gorath's face with sticky hands while he patiently cleaned her up. Other cross-species families reached out to Gorath for advice. A Vorlan named Petrick had adopted 2 human boys after their parents died in a mining accident. He was struggling to understand their emotional needs. Worried he was failing them, Gorath invited him to the station for a few days. They are afraid you will leave like their parents did. Show them consistency. Be present. They will learn to trust you, but it takes time. Lucy helped teach the lesson. She played with the 2 boys, all 3 children unbothered by species differences. They were just kids being kids. Petrick watched how Gorath interacted with Lucy, how he anticipated her needs while still letting her explore and learn. The Vorlan left with new confidence and practical strategies. A human teacher named Patricia contacted Gorath about a Thessian orphan in her care. The child was struggling with anger and grief, acting out in ways Patricia did not know how to handle. Gorath arranged a video call and spoke to the young Thessian directly. I know you are angry. Anger is easier than sadness, but Patricia wants to help you. She chose to be your family. That takes courage. Give her a chance. Let her prove she will not leave. The child looked skeptical but listened. Over the following months, Patricia sent updates. The Thessian was slowly opening up, letting herself trust again. She had watched videos of Gorath and Lucy, seeing proof that families could form across any barrier. The swarm threat continued, and Gorath still fought when called to duty. But now he led a different kind of unit. The Bridge Corps formed around him, a mixed species team that included former DreadWalkers, human soldiers, Vorlan engineers, and Thessian scouts. They worked together in ways that would have been impossible before. They protected each other because they understood that life was precious, regardless of species. During operations, Lucy stayed with Dr. Wynne, who had become like family. The doctor loved the little girl and enjoyed watching her grow. Lucy was starting to talk now, mixing Kron words with human ones, creating her own unique language. She called Gorath Papa in human speech and used the Kron word for protector. To her, they meant the same thing. On Lucy's 2nd birthday, Gorath organized a celebration that brought together beings from a dozen different species. The event was held in a large common area on the station, decorated with colors and patterns from various cultures. Children of multiple species played together while their parents talked about the challenges and joys of raising kids in this new era. Lucy sat in the middle of it all, surrounded by gifts and attention, delighted by everything. She had a small cake that Gorath had learned to make following human recipes. She tried to eat it with her hands, getting frosting everywhere. Grant took a picture of Gorath attempting to clean her face while she squirmed and laughed. This is what you started. Grant gestured at the diverse gathering. Families forming across every barrier. Children growing up knowing that different does not mean wrong. You changed everything. Gorath watched Lucy escape his cleaning attempts and run toward a group of children playing with hovering light toys. She fit right in with them. The only human among alien children, all of them just kids having fun. I just wanted to keep one small girl safe. Everything else happened because others were ready for change. I just provided an example. Dr. Wynne joined them, holding a cup of something warm. She had been documenting everything, writing papers about cross-species child development that were changing academic understanding throughout the galaxy. The data is remarkable. Children raised in mixed-species environments show enhanced adaptability, creative problem-solving, and empathy. They are growing up as true galactic citizens. Lucy's generation will be different from anything we have seen before. Patricia, the human teacher, approached with her Thessian daughter. The young alien was holding Patricia's hand now, no longer angry or afraid. She looked at Gorath with something like respect. "Thank you for talking to me. I understand now. Family is not about biology. It is about choosing each other." Gorath knelt down so he was closer to her level. "You chose wisely. Patricia is a good mother. You are lucky to have each other." The party continued into the evening. Beings who once would never have socialized together shared food and stories. Children played without seeing species differences. Parents swapped advice about developmental challenges that crossed all biological boundaries. The galaxy was becoming smaller and more connected, one family at a time. When Lucy finally fell asleep, exhausted from her special day, Gorath carried her back to their quarters. She was heavier now than when he first found her. Growing fast, learning constantly, becoming her own person, he laid her in her bed and watched her sleep, marveling at how much had changed. 2 years ago, he had been a weapon without purpose beyond his next mission. He had felt nothing, wanted nothing, expected nothing but more combat until he eventually fell. Then he found a tiny human infant in the ruins of a dead settlement. She smiled at him when she should have been afraid. She trusted him when logic said she should not. She chose him before he even knew he could be chosen. He had saved her life that day, but she had saved his too. Given him purpose and meaning he did not know existed, taught him that strength was not just about destruction, but about protection and care. Showed him that the fiercest warrior could also be the gentlest father. Lucy stirred in her sleep, making soft sounds. Gorath touched her small hand gently, and she curled her fingers around one of his in an automatic response. That simple gesture still amazed him. The complete trust it represented, the bond it proved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The galaxy was still dangerous. The swarm still threatened. Conflicts still erupted between species and factions. But there was also hope now. Families forming across barriers. Children growing up knowing that different was just different. Not better or worse. Warriors choosing to build instead of destroy. All because one DreadWalker found an infant and decided to be her father. Gorath left Lucy sleeping and went to his own rest area. He had reports to file, schedules to maintain, responsibilities to fulfill. But now those tasks had context. He did them not just because he was ordered to, but because they helped create a safer galaxy for his daughter to grow up in. The Titan DreadWalker had found a human infant in the ruins of a dead world. His next move had stunned the galaxy, breaking assumptions about what was possible. But to Gorath, it was simple. He had found his child. She had found her father. Everything else was just the galaxy learning what they already knew. That love does not need to look traditional to be real. That families can form across any barrier. That sometimes the most important battles are fought not with weapons, but with the courage to choose compassion over conditioning. Lucy had taught him all of that. And together they had taught the galaxy.